Okay, now today I've got a whiskey review for you, and that is a single malt whiskey review, and that is Loch Lomond. No age statement single malt, Loch Lomond Classic, which is at the cheaper end of the market for a single malt, retails around the £30 mark, and it is a pretty decent single malt. What is a single malt? Well, a single malt basically, I've had this argument before with people. A single malt is basically a blended whiskey, though it's not called blended, it's called vatted. And the way that works is all of the whiskey in here comes from the one distillery, hence the word single. It's all malt whiskey, hence the word malt. So it's a single malt whiskey, but what they do, they'll take malts from various casks, unless it's single cask, but we're not talking about single casks now, we're talking about a single malt. So they take whiskies from various casks, all from the same distilleries in Italy, and blend them together. Only it's called vatting in the case of single malts, not blended. Blended really though under any other name, to produce their whiskey. So this is a no age statement with Lomond. You can get various expressions in the Loch Lomond range. The 12-year-old is very popular, but this is a no age statement, so we know at the very minimum it must be 3-year-old, because it can't be any less, it wouldn't qualify as Scotch whisky. But there may be some 4-year-old, 5-year-old, even 6-year-old in here, but they're not going to brag about a 6-year-old age statement or even a 5-year-old age statement. So before we get into the whisky, let's have a little history of the Loch Lomond distillery. Now I've made some notes here. Loch Lomond, where is Loch Lomond? Well, Loch Lomond is the largest lake by surface area in Great Britain. It is a popular destination in Scotland, known for its scenic beauty and being featured in the song The Bonny Banks of Loch Lomond. The area is known for its history and heritage, with ruined castles, charming villages and archaeological discoveries. It's also the place where Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, hangs out. Okay, that's not true, but I was told this story by a friend of mine, Jamie, or as we call him rather predictably, Jock. He's a genuine Scotsman, and he told me this story, and at the time that he told me this, he'd only had 1.5 bottles of whiskey, so he's quite sober, but he told me that Loch Lomond is where Nessie goes for holidays, so that gives it its Loch Ness Monster connection. Now, the first mention of a distillery by the loch dates to 1814. The closing date of the original distillery, nestled at the northern tip of Loch Lomond near Tarbert, is sadly now lost in the mists of whisky history, with food papers remaining. And when you were speaking of whisky history, may I plug my book here, A Dark History of Whisky, which is my current book. It's available direct from the publisher's, Pen and Soul Books. You can get it anywhere books are sold, order it in your local bookshop, or head over to Amazon. But it's a whisky book like no other, A Dark History of Whisky, Whisky Noir, if you like. But back to the Loch Lomond, which is the reason we're here today. Now, the current Loch Lomond distillery owes its creation in 1965. 1965 was a very good year, 60 years ago now, to the former proprietors of Little Mill Distillery, situated in Bowling, merely a few miles from Glasgow. In 1814, the original Loch Lomond distillery took shape near Tarbert, so we went all the way back to 1814. Where the original Loch Lomond distillery took shape near Tarbert, resting towards the northwestern end of the iconic Loch Lomond. In 1966, a new chapter was penned by the Littlewell Distillery Company, opened the new distillery on the current site where Loch Lomond is based now. The distillery initially had only straight-neck pot still, based on the designs developed at Little Mill in the 1960s. In 1985, the distillery embarked on a new journey under the stewardship of the Bullock family, who purchased it. In 1994, the distillery saw the installation of a grain distillery, a pivotal addition that opened up new avenues for whisky production. And at that time, I think they may even still remain the only distillery in Scotland to have both malt and grain production at the same facility. In 2017, they purchased another pair of, in fact, the third pair of straight neck stills, and this bolstered their capacity to produce the exceptional Loch Lomond whisky that they are renowned for. Their current capacity is 5 million litres per year, so that's quite a lot of whisky. That's enough to keep my Scottish mate happy for a few months anyway. Now, the Loch Lomond that we are talking about today, as I say, is the cheaper model, cheaper expression then. So in other words, it's a non-age statement, but we know, as I said, it's at least 3 years old. I'm guessing a little bit older than that though. It's billed as Loch Lomond Classic Single Malt Scotch Whisky since 1814, and it's a rather handsome bottle with the stag year. I'm going to be drinking this in a Glencairn glass, because of course the shape of the Glencairn glass is ideal for whiskey tasting. That is, when you go to any whiskey event, these are the glasses that I recommend for initial tasting, and it's because of the bulbous bottom, the tulip bottom coming up in a chimney. It allows the flavours to be directed towards the nose. So we're going to take this to the nose. Now 40% ABV, but you are getting an ethanol aroma. Where the sun shines bright. Perhaps a little cereal. Let's take her to the palate. It's creamy, there's no smoke. It's a non-smoked whiskey. There's a bit of a burn on the back end on the finish. In the glass, it's got pretty decent legs. It doesn't say if it's chill filtered, so we'll have to assume that it's not chill filtered, nor as it seems to have had any artificial colours added. It's nice goldeny, light golden colour. Fruit, maybe, some fruit. I'm not one of those who can pick millions of flavours out of a dram, you know. You get some reviewers and they're going, freshly laundered underwear, pale lilacs, you know. I just get a whiskey taste, and this is a pretty decent whiskey taste. There is some cereal on the back end, on the finish. It's got that burn. Some sourness as well. Well, I'm going to add a little bit of water to this just to open it up. Not much, just a capful. This is Buxton mineral water. So I'm going to add just a capful to the whiskey and allow it to do its thing. While it's doing that, I'll have a look at the entry, which I've previously found in 100 Whiskies to Try Before You Die, which is a great book by Ian Buxton. And he does mention Loch Lomond in here, though bear in mind that the Loch Lomond that he covers in this book is the 12 years age. So basically it's the same whiskey as the Loch Lomond we're talking about today, only with much more age on it. So more time in the barrel, of course, will heavily affect the flavours that you're getting. So this does not directly relate to the Loch Lomond we're drinking here today, but it is basically the same spirit. So, Ian Buxton asks, what can I tell you about Loch Lomond Distillery? Well, it's very big, very unusual, not especially pretty, and it makes lots of different things. Lots of vodka in particular, as in lots and lots, a lockful in fact. The distillery's big point of distinction is the unusual mix of stills, conventional pot stills, Lomond stills, and continuous stills. As a result, it is theoretically at least self-sufficient and can exist perfectly outside the mainstream of Scotch whisky production. It can also be very innovative. Some years ago, Loch Lomond was distilling a 100% malted barley mash in a column still, and arguing that it should be admitted as a malt whisky. The Scotch Whisky Association were having none of that. It changed ownership in 2014 and has seen some changes. Not only have they invested in the Glen Scotia distillery in Campbelltown, the last of the Little Mill stocks are being marketed, a new master blender has taken over, and a range of Loch Lomond single malts launched. No, not the greatest whiskies you've ever drunk, they're well worth a second look or even a third. Not only are they very decent value, but some care and attention has been expanded on these. The 12-year age, for example, has been aged in 3 different types of casks, resulting in a surprising depth and range of flavour. Serve it blind to the whiskey snob in your life. How graceful they look in dejection. So, information which we're given on the bottle of the non-age statement Loch Lomond is our classic Loch Lomond single malt has a pronounced burst of appetizing sweet onion citrus notes. I wasn't getting none of that, with a gentle hint of smoke on the finish. And again, I was getting no smoke here. Typical style of Loch Lomond whiskies, aged in American oak casks. Our whiskies are brought together under the watchful eye of Michael Henry, our master blender. So, aged in American oak casks, that of course would be bourbon. The water's had time to do its bit. At this point now, the aroma is rather sweeter. The ethanol is burnt off, so it's not keeping the flavours captive in this. Getting fruitiness. I'm still not getting smoke. I would dispute the fact that there's any smoke on the back end of this. I do drink a lot of smoky whiskies and I'm not getting no smoke from this. But it is a decent dram, and I mean for between 25 and 30 pounds for a single malt, you can't really go wrong. So that's Loch Lomond Classic, the no age statement whiskey from Loch Lomond, the place where Nessie takes its vacation. So enjoy. Cheers. Salanji. Yakida.